Hey everyone, Swamper here. I want to talk about the mechanics of running an adventure or running a campaign. So when you're creating an adventure or running an adventure, what do you need? Well, you need things like interesting locations, cool encounters, unique NPCs, plots, machinations, so on and so forth. This video is not going to talk about any of those things. Each of them are in depth enough they could be their own video, and I might do one on the future on one of them or more. There are already plenty of quality videos on YouTube about those topics, and if someone is interested about those topics in particular, they can either send me a PM or they can just look at many of the channels I'm sub to. This video is going to discuss parts of adventure creation which are just as necessary as all those other things, but it's parts of creation that I feel are rarely talked about. So the first thing I'm going to talk about here is encounter pacing. I'm not referring to the difficulty of an encounter versus the PCs. Rather, I'm talking about balancing the types of encounters you create. Just about every encounter in an RPG can be put into one of three categories. It's either combat, exploration, or investigation. So the first type, combat, that's pretty self-explanatory. The second type, exploration, is also fairly self-evident. You're exploring areas, you're searching for traps or treasure, you're searching for an item or a person, or a monster, or tracking down a big bad guy. Many parts of a dungeon crawl would be considered exploration, although dungeon crawl would certainly have aspects of the other two types, combat and investigation. So that's exploration. So the third one is investigation. Much of the role playing you'll see in a game is revolves around investigation. Talking to NPCs for information, hints, clues. Adventures that deal with political intrigue would be mostly investigation. Murder mystery would be investigation type. So, combat, exploration, investigation. With encounter pacing, it's important to vary up the encounters and not just have it all be one type. If you had a game of nothing but fighting, that would probably get dull very quickly. So, does this mean that you need to have equal parts of all three? No. The frequency of each type of these should be based on two things. The needs of the story. If the party is in a situation where it calls for lots of combat, it's okay to have lots of combat encounters. And the same is true for the other types. So watch the needs of the story and also look at the preferences of your players. If you're playing with a group of people who like fast-paced game, you probably don't want a lot of court intrigue in there. That might bore those particular players. So when you're creating an adventure or adventures, if you have three combat encounters in a row, look for ways to insert exploration or investigation encounters. The needs of the story should take precedent, but don't feel that just because the party is crawling through like some spider-infested caves or something, you can't have non-combat encounters in there. So look at pacing. Make sure you vary up the three different types of encounters. Your players will get less bored, and the game will be better for it. All right. So another mechanic, gold sinks. Gold sinks are very important. In the real world, everybody I've ever known wouldn't mind having more money. Your players, the player characters should be like this too. But as the GM, as the creator of the adventures, you have to give them reasons to want gold, and that means you have to put in gold sinks. You need to put in costs. You need to put in uses for that gold. They can be things like paying for food or lodging or replacing gear or horses, and maybe as they get higher in level, it could be more and more expensive items. If you don't do this, then money as treasure becomes pointless. if your characters get so rich where they're all millionaires, and they find a chest with with 10,000 gold worth of gems, you're just going to be whatever, boring, right? That should never happen. If that happens, you've probably erred somewhere along the way. So make sure that your game has gold sinks, reasons for needing gold, reasons for wanting coin. Another mechanic is to make sure the party gets a base. It can be a keep, a hut, a moon base, whatever it is. At some point in the campaign, the party should get a home, for lack of a better term, or a home away from their original homes. This does several things. It establishes familiarity. It allows, if the base is in an area like a town or a city, then it allows the GM to be able to slowly flesh out NPCs that reside in that area or frequent that area more and more. It makes it easier for the GM to add new ones. When the PCs first meet an NPC, they shouldn't learn everything about that person, just like in real life. If you meet someone, they don't just start telling you their entire life story. The more you get to know that person, the more you get to know about that person. This is also true in games. So if the players have a base that they keep returning to, then they keep getting to see frequent NPCs, and they get more and more chances to know that NPC better, and the NPC is deeper for it, and so on. Players need a place to store their stuff. I mean, adventurers are, particularly in fantasy games, going around gathering loot, accumulating treasure. They might want a place to store some of it. Imagine if everything you owned in life, in your real life, you had to cart around with you. You'd effectively be homeless, and if you have a group of PCs without a base, then they are effectively homeless. Again, this isn't a 100% rule, but it's really something you want to try for. Give them a base. Another important reason for them to have this is, just like in real life, you gain things and you lose things. If the party establishes a base and stores items there and gets to know the people around the base, then this becomes something important to the party. It becomes something valuable to the party. And it also becomes something they can lose. It's not enough that the party loses something. It has to be something they are invested in and something they care about. So if they have this base that they've been, like say a small keep that they've been living in for months or years in game terms, and then that gets ruined or stolen or taken away from them, then this is a loss that they're going to feel more strongly, and it's going to offer good role-playing opportunities. Just as in real life, if you lose something important to you, it can affect your character. This is the same should be true of fictional PCs. If you've had a life where your house was burnt down, and 95% of your possessions were gone, that is going to affect you as a person. Having moments like that in a game that affect the PC are great. They add depth and realism to the PC, and they give the chance for character growth and role playing. So that's it. I think it's important to have your players get a base of operations. The last mechanic I'm going to talk about is screen time. As a GM, you have to be part movie director, or it might be more accurate to say part television show director. If you were writing for a TV show, let's say you're a writer for a TV show with an ensemble cast, you have to make an effort to give each person some lines or something to do. Certainly many episodes are going to have one or two characters as the focus, but you still have to try and include all of the characters in some way. So when you're running an RPG, it's important that you regularly jump from player to player to give them the opportunity at screen time. Now, does this mean that all players should get equal screen time? No, it doesn't. Some people are simply more boring than others. Some people are less entertaining. But what it does mean is it means that every character should get the chance at their share of screen time. When you say to them, okay, Clor and Hag, what are you doing? If the player can't think of anything to say or do, or only says or does a few seconds worth of activity and then stops and stares at you, move on to the next person. In real life, some people talk less than others, and the same is likely to be true of fictional characters. So as long as you give each player their chance at some screen time, you've done your duty as a GM in this regard. There's probably more mechanics that I can't think of right now, but I've gone on long enough. So hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and Swamper out.